Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. It's Son of a Gun Gourmet, and in this video I'm going to be going through how to make a great classic soup, Lobster Bisque. Bisques are traditionally shellfish soups with a tomato and cream base. When made right, they have a ton of flavor and a beautiful velvety texture. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and let's start cooking. I'm going to start this video off by showing you how to break down an already cooked lobster, since bisque is something you'd be making with the leftovers, not the fresh shellfish. To remove the tail, just grab the lobster with both hands and twist it off. It comes off very easily. Next, remove the two knuckles from the body. You twist them off just like the tail. You're also going to remove all the legs. When it comes to cooking lobster, it's all about utilizing absolutely everything you can off of it to extract the most flavor and yield the most product. Keep the head in a separate bowl from the claws and tail. We'll be using that later. Firmly apply pressure with a rolling pin from the bottom to the top of each leg to get the meat out. This is one of the most flavorful parts of the lobster, and you want to get every gram you possibly can so that you get your money's worth. It's doing little things like this in the kitchen that will keep your chef happy. Once you've gotten all the leg meat out, reserve it off to the side for later. When you're working with the claws, the first thing you want to do is remove them from the knuckle. Next, as long as you're gentle, you could wiggle the bottom part of the claw off without bringing the meat with it. And if you're not so lucky, you kind of have to fish it out with a skewer. After that, using the spine of the knife, crack open the bottom third of the claw and twist. This should pop it right off. Sometimes the shell could be a bit stubborn, so in cases like that, you want to just crack it a little bit more along the base so that you can get to the claw. All you have to do to remove the meat from the knuckle is to cut them from end to end with a pair of kitchen shears. Then open them up. Be mindful of the shell when you're using your hands, it can be pretty sharp. A lot of people say that this is the best part of the lobster because the meat is sweeter. To me, it's all good, but if I were to choose a favorite, I would have to go with the claw. I love the texture of it. Once you've got all the meat out, store it off to the side with the rest. And now for the last part, the tail. First, I grab it on either side and pull to loosen it up, then break off the tail fin. After that, grab the kitchen shears and cut it from top to bottom on the belly side. Alternatively, you could split the tail down the middle with a knife. But doing it like this, you could get all the meat out in one piece. With all the meat separated from the shell, it's time to start working on the soup. This may take a bit of time in your first crack at it, but after a while you'll be flying through it. Put all the shells into a baking pan and then bake them in the oven at 350 degrees for approximately 20 to 25 minutes. And while those are baking, we should be able to get the rest of the soup base ready. Start by dicing half an onion. I know that most people have probably heard this before, but just in case you haven't, onions are a great vegetable to build flavor off of, and it's why you'll find them as the foundation for countless soups and sauces. Their importance in the kitchen is irreplaceable. Next, dice half a bulb of fennel. I really like the anise flavor that fennel brings to this dish. It's a great ingredient that contrasts beautifully with hearty seafood. It's been a long-running joke between my friends and I that no matter what seafood dish I'm cooking, I could always seem to incorporate fennel into it. So this one's for you guys. I hope you're watching. Peel and chop up 5 cloves of garlic. You don't have to worry about any of your cuts being too accurate. This whole soup is going to get pureed afterwards. You just want everything cut fine so it cooks quickly and evenly. In a pot, melt down 3 tablespoons of butter. One reason I love cooking classic French food is that there's almost always butter and cream in it. But back then they had to use super rich ingredients because bisque was started as a way to get rid of otherwise unusable shellfish. But now it's just used to make things delicious. Add your vegetables and let them sweat out until they're translucent. Don't forget to add a pinch of salt to build some flavor and help break everything down. Once they've cooked long enough, add 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. I like to partly use roux to thicken this kind of soup because it gives a smooth, buttery texture. I know that it's not necessary, but I like the added richness. Make sure to stir it in well so all the butter is mixed with the flour coating the vegetables. Next, add 1 small can of tomato paste. It's definitely tomato that really gives bisque its body and rounds out all the flavors. I prefer using tomato paste for its consistency, but if I had a really nice batch of tomatoes, I'd definitely throw them in. Cook it out until it starts to caramelize. If you don't let it, it won't sweeten up and it will have a bit of an acidic flavor. Now you can deglaze the pot with 1 liter of cold chicken stock. Whisk all the ingredients together so that the flour doesn't clump up. Let it come up to a boil and then bring it down to a simmer and stir it to make sure that nothing's sticking on the bottom. By now your lobster shells should have been baking for about 25 minutes and they're ready to go in the pot. But before we put them in, we'll deglaze the pan with half a cup of white wine. This will ensure that all that great lobster flavor makes its way to the end product rather than staying in the baking pan. Incorporate the lobster shells into the soup base as best as you can and let the pot simmer for about 15 minutes. This will allow the soup to thicken up and develop some great flavor. Make sure to stir it every now and then so it doesn't stick to the bottom. Once you've taken it off the heat, it's time to take out the blender. Put all the lobster shells and the soup base into it. This may seem a little odd, but back in the day when making bisque, they actually ground all the seafood shells into a fine paste to thicken the soup with. Start the blender on low speed and work all the way up to the highest setting. Once you're done blending the soup, strain it through a very fine sieve. If you don't have one, strain it through a cheesecloth. Whatever you need to get all the shell out. And you could see that blending the shell in definitely thickened the soup up, and grinding it like that gets every last ounce of flavor out of it. It just means that properly passing it is incredibly important because you want a bisque to be extremely smooth. Once it's all been strained, put it back on the stove to finish cooking. Pour in 1 cup of cream, make sure it's well incorporated, and then bring the pot back up to a boil. Some people like to add the cream while blending, but personally I prefer to bring everything back up one more time to marry all the ingredients together. After the soup comes up to a boil, kill the heat, taste it, and adjust the seasoning if it's needed. Now we can leave it hot and off to the side to prepare the meat and garnish. Cut into the first layer of flesh along the top of the tail to devein it. Once you've done that, split it in half and chop up the rest of the lobster with it. Then put it back into a bowl and mix it all together. As a garnish, I'm going to finely chop some chives. And now to finally put everything together, serve 8 fluid ounces of bisque with 1 nice tablespoon of lobster meat and a sprinkle of chives. And that's my take on lobster bisque. I hope you try it because I know you'll love it. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and keep on cooking.